Okay. Greetings. Whoa. I know y'all see this video playing in the background. It's because it's going to tie into what I'm saying. I've had a lot of aha moments, self-realizations, and so forth. And whoa. Man. I did some deep reflecting and crying today. It's been a day. Now, y'all know when I do these videos, let's give honor to Source, to the Creator, Most High, whatever you subscribe to. Clap it up for yourself. Celebrate yourself. If you feel included in this, if it doesn't, you're open to comment, share, or whatever. Teach their own. Other than that, I appreciate you all being here. I guess the eclipse energy is still eclipsing, but this shit is deep. This is so deep. I had to come with y'all real and raw because I'm going to be speaking from my perspective, as always, my experience. And if you're just now here, remember, like I talk about a lot of things that my message is to speak from my experience, but make it relatable, bridge the gap between whatever perspective I'm kind of speaking on, like especially like from people of different nationalities, creeds, and colors, outside of that on a deeper level, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, so forth, and bringing you back home to yourself, coming back home to you. Other than that, this one gonna be a great breakdown. It's not even a long video, but I came across it and it even stirred up something inside of me to where I even had to say it to someone, like, whoa. And as much as you want to forget stuff, it bring things up within me, and then having to present it to a person and people, or even just to myself, so I can honor that emotion, feel it, and then be done with it. And so that's why a lot of what I do is I have moments where I find ways to transmute it, whether through video, art, other outlets, and so forth. And this is one of them. Like, when I saw this video, I was like, whoa. And I'm going to break it down on different layers. Like I said, it's different perspectives. It's not, when you hear this video, this is not an attack on women. This is not an attack on nobody. This is not dehumanize, devalue people for whomever they are, whatever they subscribe to, and so forth. Make that very fucking clear, okay? Other than that, so I'm gonna break this video down in pieces, okay? So, I was just scrolling through a video and this came up, and it says, what a man needs. But bro, I got choked up, I started crying, and y'all know I speak about the inner child. Y'all know I speak about so many different layers of things when you're talking about economically, community, life, family, and so forth. I'm finna get deep into it when I get my chapstick, because my lips is chapped as a mother right now. Shout out to the big lips. Any of you out there got big lips, you are beautiful. You supposed to talk. Look, the beautiful young lady here. Beautiful lips, both of them. You got lips. They ain't just for the kiss. They just for the talk. They for a lot of things. Beautiful feature. Shout out to people with bigger lips. I advocate for that. I love my lips. I used to be self-conscious, but it's I embrace them even more now. So anywho, let me jump into this. So I'm gonna break this down in layers because it was very triggering and led to me speaking about it.
Is they want to be understood. So the main thing that I'm noticing with men is they want to be understood. And I feel like as women, society has not emphasized the value of actually getting to know a man, actually delving in and giving a shit what he feels, thinks. Society is more so catered to women now.
Okay.
The main thing that I'm noticing with men.
So let me stop that and turn the volume on. The first thing when she slowly goes into the facts, first saying that how, and this is so important because y'all know I break it down on layers.
Is they want to be understood. And I feel like as women, society has not emphasized the value of actually getting to know a man.
That right there, getting to know a man, getting to know us. The importance of this is, what's so valuable about this is that many will say that they, let's just say this, the value of getting to know us is so important.
We're seeing with men is they want to be understood.
And so let me start right there. I like to say understood and overstand. And I'm gonna go much more deeper because the reason why I feel like it's not valued, it has a lot to do with, I speak about not just the mother wound, but I speak about the belief systems carried from the matriarchal women and how she even mentioned how it caters to women. And not just any woman, the societal and modern day women, it caters to so much of their dysfunction that it doesn't value what and who we are as men. And with that, this is why I notice how so many young men that are left with, let's say, emotional abandonment wounds, young men that grow into these men that you see today, this is why I realize how their impulsivity, if that's the word, or impulsiveness, or how they react to certain situations, is simply because they're being understood or overstood is not valued more than, let's say, a disrespectful mother or a disrespectful matriarchal system, right? And when the matriarch is not aware of what they're enabling, we don't realize how much we will support a narrative of imbalance, dysfunctionality, confusion, because it leaves a boy is raised completely different or perceives the world completely different than what a little girl will be, or what So when you don't have and this is why I do what I do, man, because it's like I really had to tell someone. I was like, it hit me because I was playing the video and I was expressing to them like, yo, this is it. The world doesn't value getting to know us on a deeper level. And it's not about pointing the finger or saying it's all women or this person, that person. No, it's much deeper to where when we don't know who we are as women and men, or trying to live out our purpose, and we don't value our well-being, our emotional well-being and things as such, then we won't value the sons that grow into these men. We won't value the daughters that grow into into motherhood. When we don't value those very things in childhood, I cannot say, like I was telling someone, I cannot say that I feel heard or seen. And when you're talking about a narrative push so much, there is so much more emphasis on how the world caters to, again, women naturally, when they're seen as a victim naturally, opposed to a man who can be emotionally damaged, emotionally abused, financially abused, physically abused, and so forth. And that's from experience, to where I've experienced things in relationships and so forth where I had to take full accountability and realize wow, my voice was never heard, or I never felt seen, and I carried a load, or I took it into a workplace, or I took it on in life, and now I'm unpacking the shit right now. I'm like, the world doesn't care to get to know me. I cannot force it, but I go back to the mother and father that I had. When you see certain dynamics where you have a single parent home or a broken home and so forth, where there isn't core values of integrity or authenticity, of the importance of your emotional well-being or your voice being heard, and all of those very attributes that are healthy and holistic, then you see a world full of what? Things that cater more towards enabling dysfunctionality. And that's on all levels, because whether it's catering more towards women and their issues and so forth, I'm seeing it play out even in settings where I've talked to y'all before about like the YWCA, or just certain environments where they bring in a family, but in actuality the man is only seen as, again, the workload that he can carry, or what is he willing to do to protect and provide. It's never truly what he wants out of life. And this is where you see a lot of bitter people, rage and anger, and so much built up around the whole fact of like how much the family dynamic doesn't really reflect what it authentically was created for. So, let me go back to that.
Amen. Actually delving in and giving a shit what he feels, thinks. Society is more so catered to women now. I mean, I guess that's a one-up for women in general, but
even with that, like caring about what we think and how we feel and so forth, it's so vital. It's so vital, because then we, as a representation of a man, it's like, no one really cares what I want. Why should they? Even being a darker man, no one cares what I want, when the narrative is already, like, since we're younger, I'm already given this narrative of, this is what you deserve. Imagine that the world, when I arrived here, and having free will, or just having my own sovereign birthright to just be me, and the powers that used to be, or even the forces at play, or people, your mom and dad and surrounding communities and so forth, it's already telling you what you want out of life without you even deciding, telling what you should be, how you should act, what you should do. You should be an athlete. You should be a preacher. The normalized narrative of what it is to be somebody, or even a man. And so when I say I can speak just from the perspective of not only the inner child within me, but the boy that has grown into a man, I was sitting there telling someone, like, no one has ever asked me what I wanted out of life. It's always been about, and when I look at the wounded patriarchal, the wounded masculine played out from both matriarchal and patriarchal, who really is getting what they want out of life? And then when I look at needs, it's like, wants and needs are different, but it's like all of that is decided for us, whether through a governmental structure, whether through society, whether through when you're trying to walk, let's say, a path of just integrity and authenticity. It's like either you do this, or that's when I realize a lot of control comes in with a lot of men, because of they're not really to the depths, depending on their demographics and their upbringing. They never got what they wanted out of life. And as much as they cover it up when you're dealing with a material security, a priority to rather material security, that's not even what, like, I'm gonna be honest with myself. That's not at all what I feel will bring fulfillment or satisfaction if it's not really internalized first, if that makes sense. And this goes back to well-being. So for me, it's like when I see modern day men, no matter who it is, the status, creed, or color, or whatever, the reason I say a lot of a false empowerment around it is because, do they really know what they want out of life? And is it really coming from a genuine place? Is it really coming from a fulfilled place? And so I see a lot of men mask, because a lot of them are catering to what the woman wants and needs rather than their own. And so that's where a lot of confusion and confliction can come in, or even chaos, because you see how a woman is always naturally saying what she wants out of life, what she wants in a man, and da-da-da-da-da. And we don't realize, like, due to the false empowerment of actually what the matriarchal embodies in a holistic way, it's not truly what they even really want. It's not to say you cannot want a luxurious life or want this and want that, But without the fulfillment, the emotional fulfillment, what the fuck do you have? And that's why I realized I had to get within myself. I was like, whoa, no, my mother never asked me what I wanted out of life. Because when you're dealing with abuse or abandonment and certain things, you didn't never ask me what I wanted. You gave me what you felt I deserve. And I feel like that's what we're dealing with when we talk about mental disorder, PTSD, a dysregulated nervous system, is because I didn't want to be beaten young. I didn't want to be abused. I didn't want those things out of life. But no one ever asked as a man. And that's why I told my partner, I was just like, no one ever asked me what I want. I went through situations where, and it's not no one's fault. I just got into a place like, wow, now I can decide what I want out of life. And if that bothers people, so what? Because notice once you start taking back your power, this bothers people. Again, I'm a representation as a patriarchal representation of all men, little boys and so forth, that represent that patriarchal aspect. And in getting to know myself more on a deeper level, I recognize, like, do people actually care about what I think or how I feel about something? And I was telling someone, I was like, even through situations, how you can see, let's say we can use a mother who feels like she's went through something with a man. It's natural that they cater to the woman, whether in a court system setting, I'm just saying it's a high percentage, or a woman she can have abused a man on whatever level, but it's the dysfunction around, the distortion around what the mother has represented and how it affected everyone, the matriarchal, and what you see patriarchally. That internalized patriarchal system that they still uphold reflects their dysfunctional matriarchal aspect of keeping things that are dysfunction, imbalance, emotionally unstable, to even support the narrative around what them not having compassion, not having compassion not only for themselves, but not having compassion for their sons or men. And that's what you see play out. You see on a global scale, on scale of certain people and places, whoever birthed them, we don't ask ourselves, who are the women that birthed these men that are in these positions? Where aren't y'all holding them accountable? Who are the women that enable them? Where are their fucking mothers? Where are the women? Why aren't y'all holding the women accountable? Because what I see is that, again, even what that man is saying, whomever it is, it still reflects the fact that how not only the distortion of it, but also what we put our energy towards to even show that where still is the accountability for ourselves in supporting and what we're supporting, what we're enabling. So again, what I see reflected in this patriarchal, going back to the matriarchal, again, values, core values. So I'm gonna continue with this. Let me see what else she said.
Understanding him as a man. How can you be a good woman to a man when you don't give a shit to understand him? And it's like societally, us as women are being taught that we should be catered to the end. Period. Close the book.
But this right here,
towards understanding him, villains, and society and women are not even leaning towards understanding him as a man. How can you be a good woman to a man when you don't give a shit to understand him? And it's like society.
And the reason that's important is because it's not calling out women. It's the fact that I go on a deeper level. How can you be peaceful with someone if you're not at peace with yourself? Or how can you be somewhat of value if you don't see the value within yourself? So again, this is why I've noticed, like, when I look at core values, or like, let's use a mother or a matriarchal system or the distorted mother. When we don't know the importance of vetting people, we'll get into relationships without seeing the importance of valuing who we are and valuing and sustaining, let's say, a connection or relationship or partnership. So when that's not a priority, where you actually value the voice of the man or who he is, young through child development, then you're just selfishly telling him and programming him into relationships that his emotions doesn't matter, his voice doesn't matter. And this, the reason I say it starts young, because I went through that. When my wants and needs, I unconsciously developed this behavior pattern where I was supposed to cater. This is where the overcompensation comes from, in so many relationships, overgiving and so forth, and we create a society around that, or giving more. When I say catering more to the women, and that's it, like she said, like that's just it, and we don't even realize like how much we're not only abandoning the aspect of what our young men and men represent. They're left with trying to maneuver the world by themselves, and without a moral compass, or without an internal compass or idea of what a holistic woman embodies, or a woman that is healthy embodies. So whether you know it or not, unconsciously, when he isn't valued, when he isn't seen for who he is or who he can become, then that's on a much deeper aspect. It's like we're easily judging or want to, again, when I'm seeing modern day women, and I can experience it, I'm experiencing it firsthand with just connecting with women, whether platonically or friendship or whatever. It's showing me like what are they leading with. And then certain conversations I know a lot of women can relate, or people can relate to, saying like, well, what are you gonna do for me? You got a narrative now, like a man has to have all these things, and he I want a man with 6 figures, I want a man with this. To each their own. But I've always addressed the fact of, again, it won't matter, no matter how long you're with that man or whomever you're with, it won't matter if that person doesn't feel like feel that their attention or whatever they're doing is appreciated. Men are wired different, through admiration, through respect. So when you're having situations or a world where if he doesn't have that, then I don't respect him, this is bullshit. And you even see, from experience, I've seen people, parents, certain things like, if you don't have this, well, we don't respect him, we don't value him, we come from a family that has this, we come from a family that's royal, it can be any type of perspective, we come from this, but he's not valuable if he doesn't have a certain amount of money, or I don't want to talk to him because, girl, he he work here, or he do this. It's so many different things that we don't even realize. Like we find every reason not to see people or make them feel valuable. Not even making them. It's just to the core of everything. It's about, with men and little boys, admiration, appreciation for who they are and whatever that they're doing. But again, being that the world has masked so much of giving men and young men this narrative of believing that gain all these material things, all these accolades and so forth, but they have no depth to them, and women have enabled this. And now we're at a place now where things have shifted to where you're going to see all of those things that people have acquired means nothing without some type of source connection or connection to themselves, or a deeper connection to themselves emotionally and so forth. And so that's why I'm able to recognize in different, from a different perspective of like, being that I used to overcompensate because I never had a foundation on anyone telling me, well, don't forget about what you want out of life. Make sure everyone's dreams come true, but don't forget about you. So, and I can see like a lot of people who have came into success or whatever it is, where they can feel guilt and so forth by actually going towards what they want out of life. And so that's why I see a lot of relationships that don't stand the test of time with certain things, because one thing I used to bolt out of connections, and sometimes I overstay my welcome through connections too because of my own inability to stand in my own power. But as I recovered it and restored it, my independence with connecting to myself on a deeper level, I started to recognize, like, as I start to realize, like, I was in connections with women who did not appreciate what it is I was doing, And that's what my spirit was like, why you standing this? This is not cool. And with that, I had to learn that, it's very important on who is even empowering you to step into your purpose and your independence and so forth, and not in an unhealthy manner, but more so in a place where they know how it will affect everyone and how it would benefit everyone in a more healthy and conscious way. So that's one of the biggest learning lessons that I've learned. Let me go back to this video as well.
And takes. That sounds like a parasitic relationship. How do that? Woman to a man when you don't give a shit to understand him, and it's like societally, us as women are being taught.
That's another thing when she's saying like how we create a society where women don't care to get to understand and overstand a man. This again reflects their woundedness or their inner world. When I'm recognizing women who just want to rush in, and men do the same thing too, rush into certain relationships and not really get to know other people, it has a lot to do with reflecting, like really getting to know yourself. And that's from experience. Like I've seen people do it, like like through relationships and so forth, just jump into stuff. And again, this is because we didn't have a blueprint on vetting people or knowing how to get to know ourselves more. But that comes on later in life, which is okay. This is why I'm here, because it comes on later in life, so we can change the narrative and rewrite the narrative and not feel guilt and shame around it. But it's okay to feel the emotions around it. I've had to forgive myself for certain decisions that I made, but I won't feel shame and guilt around it. I had to acknowledge it. I won't stay stagnant. So for me, one of the most important things she mentioned again is like when women don't care to get to know them. Again, this reflects, I tell you all the time, the matriarchal who hasn't got to know themselves. Women haven't got to know themselves. They've been overridden, or they've been, is that the word? Overridden, or just overwhelmed with life. With generations or intergenerational things of not getting to know who they are on a deeper level. Not only that, like even getting to know who before them. On a deeper level like that, like who were their grandmothers, who their great-great-great-grandmothers, that even the importance of, is a sense of empowerment. Then you got mothers and fathers who gatekeep things away from the importance, not to mention society, the importance of your ancestry, your connection to the land. All these things are very vital, leading into getting to know who you are and then getting to know people on a much more deeper spiritual, ancestral, or even physical level. So with that, again, this inability to get to know or wanting to get to know people, we do it sometimes in an unhealthy way, unhealthy fashion, by moving on fast because we were exposed to that young, desperately trying to cling on to relationships or have unhealthy attachments, because that's all a lot of us saw and that's all a lot of us witnessed. So this is where grace comes in for ourselves and start to recognize like, yo, hold on, let me put a pause button on this. So as she mentioned, like, not really getting to know us as men has a lot to do with self. We're not coming from generations where people knew who they were and walked in their purpose and know themselves on a deeper level, because then you realize that affects how you choose your partnerships, relationships, the mother and father of your children. All of that affects your business and so forth, because that vetting process, they getting to know you more, you will begin to develop that discernment, your intuition, that spiritual part of yourself, that emotional part of yourself, that part of yourself that's telling you like, oh, that feeling, this don't seem right here, and that's where we are rewriting the narrative. Well, I'm currently have to rewrite the narrative, and so, as in mentioned, like the needs of a man, I also have to vocalize the importance of where the needs and wants of our women have never been met. And I ain't just talking on the superficial level, because that's what the world has convinced you of. Just giving you all this material safety, but a lot of us are coming from demographics and places where we haven't had the emotional safety, the spiritual safety, security, stability and so forth. That affects all generations. That affects the world's climate. That affects the environment. I mean, you got shit now that's happening in the world shutdowns and all this other stuff, which I know is divine intervention. A lot of things that literally is creating something to where we have to learn more about ourselves. These are opportunities, I say, divine intervention for people to really get to know themselves more, really realize, come to the self-realization, what it is I'm going to do to better myself, connect with people who align with that, and even align with people who want to create more peace, harmony, and prosperity in life, an experience where you feel safe in all aspects, on all levels. So let me continue this.
And takes. That sounds, period. Close the book. And if you really think about that, it's kind of bullshit. Because are you saying that a man is just supposed to give?
That's the world we created.
Shut up. Emotionally, financially, spiritually, physically.
Yes.
In every way, a man is supposed to sow unto a woman, and a woman takes and takes and takes and takes. That sounds like a parasitic relationship. What happens in any parasitic relationship? The host eventually dies. Move on to the next one.
But that's
how you feel about Cam? No.
But that's the reality of what you see now in society. That's what you see. Especially, let's say, if a woman isn't spiritually in tune with herself, she's going to naturally drain that man. Like a succubus, incubus, whatever you want to call it, Jezebel spirit. And that's what you see in society, like with women who parade themselves, who are probably coming from some type of sexual trauma that they probably either unaware of, or even in fact of like has followed their generations. So they lead with that, and that's the only thing they know how. And if the man is not aware, he don't realize like this is only draining me, this is only pulling from me. So again, this is the blueprints that we have to been given, where naturally it's told to us as men to just give. You're asking us to give emotionally, mentally, and so forth. In the reality, like I got to a point where like this is how authentic it's been. I reference Hood Healer, who has mentioned the fact of like, her saying like just melanated men especially, and there's very few when I'm talking about, darker men, how our image has been portrayed to the world through dysfunctionality and, in so many ways, how we're just viewed as just sexual and, so many things on different levels where, as we're in that place of taking back our power, it's for us to recognize even relationships with our mothers, our fathers, and so forth, and women in relationships and so forth, like on and on, to realize like if I don't move away from what the world has tried to portray me to be, and that includes as I move away that all illusions fall when it comes to the people who have enabled that, whether they know it unconsciously or not, then I have to step more into myself and accept like it is what it is. And again, when you're talking about, when she said parasitic, when you look at the system, it's very parasitic. When you look at how things are manipulated and controlled, it's to suck people dry of their essence, of who they are and so forth. Because when you look at a distorted mother, meaning that what the matriarchal has represented, look at who they look at the women that they uphold. And I'm saying like this is important because your daughters see this image of women that they uphold. And this is why it's so much a shift into women that are truly holding the blueprint of a holistic approach, that have an interconnectedness to all women, not women that are just looking for self-righteousness to be uplifted and just in a way to where they're focused on drama, they're focused on division, they push the narrative of just, again, I see narratives of like just them pushing things sexually and nothing else. Those with spiritual eyes can see, those with awareness can see like this is all you lead with, that's all you have. And with that, this won't be a woman who value a man such as myself that speaks from a place of let's say just healing or authenticity or integrity, it will literally shatter her illusion. It will shatter her foundation of what she has built her identity around. And same goes for men who support that, who most likely are being sucked dry from that Jezebel or that woman in itself, in that relationship, whatever his relationship is to that corporation and business and so forth. When you look at a distorted mother and a distorted father, these men represent that distorted father through their pimpish ways, through their self-righteousness and so forth. And when you're talking about supporting people out of that and also being a bridge for the youth, like, I'm not at all, I said this before to someone, I was like, I'm not at all that to be not accepted because it's unfamiliar to what is prioritized in this world, which is a mask of dysfunctionality and disharmony and division and shit like that. So why would I be surprised that when that video hit me, when I said, wow, my needs aren't being met or my wants. And again, I can acknowledge that reflects the foundations of having a mother wound or knowing a woman who was distorted, who was not stable emotionally and so forth. So guess what? That reflects the relationships that I was in the past, for the overcompensating and realizing being the giver so much and being in things parasitic. Because I can acknowledge that relationship with my mother was very parasitic. When you're talking about emotional incest, and these are the foundations that have been given to us as men, very young men, and throughout the globe. And especially when you don't have women that walk and stand in their power, stand in love instead of falling in it, prioritizing their wants and needs. And again, some do it in other ways where they deal with men who they overgive to or overcompensate, and it's not reciprocated. That's parasitic as well, or that's draining as well. So again, it still mirrors back some type of needs or wants that were never met in childhood development or even the foundation. So that's why you can have a man that come along and give you all this material security, but lack the inability or have the inability to connect emotionally. It can be looked differently. The energy just shows up differently through a different person or whatever. So that's what I had to recognize. I'm like, I can see on a deeper level, like, wow. I was telling someone, I was like, my mother never asked me what I wanted. And then, it's so deeper when you look on the economic aspect or even communitively or in the community and so forth. When you look at even women that are darker and so forth, it's amazing to see women talk about this now. But I know some people will be in the comments trying to attack what she's saying because, again, their inability to connect with self, to realize that as much as they pour into themselves, it's reciprocated. If they're able to see that. But it also goes back into the wants and needs that our mothers did not receive. When you're coming from generations of women that are darker too, that for certain generations that did not feel safe or stable and so forth, so they're providing those wants and needs for said men that are darker like myself, or even men whoever they're dating, no matter their creed and color. That can be challenging to give from a place like that, or connect to a person who could come from certain demographics that you didn't come from, and maybe their mother and father had material security and maybe you didn't. So again, it can be a struggle or uphill battle for a lot of people who don't really know what their wants are or don't even know what they need, and not even knowing how that connects to their foundations when they were a child or childhood development. So a lot of this stuff, I go for deeper levels. Like, I look at these messages, but it's not. It was very enlightening, but very triggering at the same time, because, like I said, I used to always be focused on, and this was my shit, like, take full accountability, like, giving to people, and, it was my problem for, like, realizing, like, I know I wanted things in return. I know I deserve things. And what it just shows me that this is where you step more into yourself and step into your independence and realize, like, through that uncomfortability. For you, it's empowering, but it can be uncomfortable for people, and if they're willing to see, they too can do the same thing. That's the effects that you can have by having a light within you, that empowering it can be, instead of a jealousy or envy or even breadcrumbing and so forth. Like a lot of things I was starting to embody where I had to go through to walk in my purpose and stand in it. So yeah, like it's deep when you get to certain connections or in past relationships where you didn't even realize like someone wants and needs could be different. And that's what life, like I say, is like the neutral aspect of it, or balance. We're not coming from a world that it may be, and then you know what's so funny, it can be perceived, especially as a darker man in America, to from my perspective of seeing men that are lighter shade, they get what they want all the time. It's perceived that way. But it's like when I look at it, I'm like, well, they got what they want, but even through a lens of self-hatred, even through a lens of false empowerment, like stepping on people on the way up. And I'm not saying this is all. I'm just saying the when you're looking at the last few hundred years and what people have built on, yes, for sure. And so I can honestly say, like, would I want that? No. What I want, I'm realizing, has a lot to do with emotional fulfillment. A lot of things dealing with spiritual and well-being, towards wanting that for all, not just the fact of like trying to focus on the money, the power, and stuff like that, because you're still sending a message to the youth. You're still and then it's so funny again, the reason why I say that about men who represent that is that it reflects the women that are enabling that, that's supporting that, whether they're passive or not, against what's actually going on. And it's wild because you see it crumbling. It's like you've seen people really build whatever they want to call it, their empires or kingdoms, literally around nothing that's really fulfillment. To them, fulfillment is money, their God or whatever they, to them, that's what's empowering, and that's what they lead with. So again, when you're talking about wants and needs, it can look different for a man who is in tune, who is aware, and who leads with now knowing what love is, and love for self leads with that. So again, I've come in contact with women who, again, as I know more about what my wants and needs are, it helps me recognize, like, on any level, whether platonic, business, partnership, and so forth, that what I want out of life, what my needs and wants are, do I feel I'm being valued here, appreciated, and so forth. And that's on so many levels when you look at it, even the climate of the countries and so forth. Even how, because we're talking about wants and stuff, it's like, imagine like certain leaders or people who just came along and wanted more out of life, and it was almost like apprehended or snatched away because of men who have carried this false sense of empowerment through destruction, through violence, and so forth, and then poke their chests out and portray to the world that this is power. That's y'all world. That's what y'all have enabled. And again, for me, that's not, I've always, since I was young, knew that was different. Knew that was a different world that I was supposed to create and so forth within myself, and those who align with that. I'm not trying to focus on the acceptance of that. So that does go back to want and needs, and there are people out there who are more focused on emotional fulfillment, building things around integrity and authenticity. So as you see a collapse of the old world, the value changes as well when it comes to economically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, demographically, in the communities and families. As you rebuild things, your wants and needs are going to change as an individual. And and what I mean by that, like, if you're a father or mother, why wouldn't you want your child to connect with others of other nationalities and get along with them. So right now, a lot of that's for y'all. I didn't know I was going to go this deep into this, but a lot of y'all, that awareness around that. When you're talking about wants and needs, I know this was talking about wants and needs of a man, but when you look at connections like that, that's in the world right now, those are the things that are being cleansed from the world, from the atmosphere, from everything, is those parasitic things that have kept things in a state of division, disruption, all those things that don't reflect authenticity or integrity. And that's in all creeds and colors, because again, when you're talking about wants and needs are just necessities and stability and so forth, there's the value system changes now. Everything shifts right now when you're talking about the values of again, when I was a part or trying to fit into the world narrative, my focus was at a time, because of the peer pressure or the pressure around what it was to be a man, was material security. Like I said, it's okay to have security materialistically. The balance I'm restoring is the importance of emotional security. And how do I obtain that? Through learning and unlearning what kept me in emotional instability. And with that starts from, again, childhood development, recognizing the issues of what my mother went through as a woman, as a darker woman, the emotional abuse from society, from environments, the physical abuse you see, the mental, the financial abuse in governments, in families and so forth. Again, a lot of people, we want to point the finger in family dynamics. In actuality, like you're talking about from generations where when wants and needs come in on a deeper level, where you don't have women who grow up and they have been overwhelmed with so much. That's why I give so much grace to women who are fighting or trying to obtain much more through their desiring to have, want their children to live a more balanced and harmonious life and have food on the table, not want for anything. And I see why people go towards what they go towards. I see why certain demographics act the way they do and so forth. When you're seeing that their needs are not being met, they hold this rage, or there's a disappointment there. There's a probably shame and guilt that they unaware that they carry it, and they pass this on, or they project this rage onto their kids because they're trying to do what they feel is best. And when it talks about like the wants of a man and so forth, and again, I naturally look at the aspect of how our mothers haven't had their needs met, or what they want out of life. They want imagine a darker woman, growing up in the 60s and 70s and shit. They want to get along with people that are lighter. But what climate have the people that are lighter shade in America have created? They constantly and consistently, with persistence, have shown people that they don't want them to be a part of that. So we don't want you to have our resources. We don't want you even in this world. We don't even care if you are alive. This shit goes deeper, bro, than just the wants of men. Like, I see the surface level of what she was expressing, but for me, I go much more deeper. I dive deeper to where we're talking about generations where our mothers' wants and needs have never been met. And then we're quick to try to blame them, but I'm like, no, why aren't we looking at the root cause of the economic system of that? Who's created that? Yeah. So you want a more harmonious and peaceful world? Well, stop being fucking selfish. Why aren't we focused on creating a world where most of the U.S. and most of these countries have vacant fucking land? Y'all want to talk about who's in control? Like, yo, step up, do something, speak. Like, again, I'm here to restore this shit. I'm here to talk about these very things that y'all are afraid of. Nobody So with that, again, when I look at the things on a deeper level, I have to see, like, having to see your mother struggle, but everyone want to make it seem like it's just on her. Bitch, there's systems that have been put in place. Fuck out of here. So when you talk about, again, women that are darker, having grace for them. Then not to mention women that are darker, who come from certain nationalities and creeds, who, let's say, are maybe well off, and then it seems like the darker woman in America is so demonized just by her survival skills for hundreds of years, or just by her being a darker woman, like, just, and still her wants and needs are like neglected, and then we're pointing her out to be the problem, but she's the reason why all this shit is like still going. And then not even only that, you got people that are lighter shade, not all, women who act like they're not a part of the climate of keeping, women like that from receiving said resources. And this is from all nationalities of women that are lighter, because I recognize it a lot too. And even people that are darker too. You got people that live in the country and so forth, and they literally are so against the original woman of this territory, or just this country and so forth, where again, when we're talking about wants and needs, I had to look at it deeper. I just naturally do that. I cut into shit. I'm like, yo, hold on, I can't what. There were times I didn't even realize like how my mama did certain things with my grandmother. And at the same time, they're trying to fulfill their own needs. They're trying to find the purpose in life. And so when you're talking about the energy and the foundations of this country and so forth, who has prioritized the wants and needs of the darker women lately here when it comes to their emotional well-being, when it comes to their physical, not just their physical, because food ain't gonna just do it. Every time they offer something is cut short, or certain things like that. And this is where divine justice and judgment comes into play, where again, those who have y'all consider and put on the high horse of representing this false empowerment or self-righteous, they're going to fall from grace. They already are. So, I don't veer into a whole other lane of like deeper, introspective or perspective on like exactly what's really happening or has been happening and what no longer will be, because y'all afraid to talk about it. And so you got to be a sick and wicked individual to want to think that something that belongs to you, whether this earthly plane or just this world, to keep housing, food, resources naturally that are here organically from people, from things that naturally keep everything flowing. Yeah. Like, even the fact of how you can go to a store, then go to the next store, and then you're seeing the fruit, how the fruit looks, and then you go over here, then it's like, bro, y'all don't realize the judgment and the shit that's coming to this world right now, and so forth. Like, and so I tell people, it ain't, I ain't gonna go into depth about that, but that was deep for me. Like, when she was talking about the wants and needs, like how men, that's not just a woman thing. You're talking about men too, who also support it, especially the demise of other people, so that their voice, so they don't even feel seen. So again, it's not just a woman thing. It's also the climate of how certain things want to keep people silent and not seen, and they're, even just my message. Like with that, it's like that could be forces at play, but at the same time, I know all things always unfold beautifully, because the mission is bigger than one individual, 2, if 10, or even 10,000. Like, no one's bigger than the program, and we're ushering in something way more vital and important and harmonious and so forth. So yeah, that is all I got. Y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.